I think the first question I'm starting to ask myself is, can this be done with global talent? Which is a complete framework change from where I was even a few months ago, because let's use social media as an example, right? We're a small company, we only have a certain amount of cash in the bank, and we have to be really careful with our hiring decisions.
Could you please introduce yourself, your business, and the customers who you serve?
Yeah, so I'm Greg Van Horn. I'm the owner of Bumble Roofing in suburban Philadelphia. Bumble Roofing is a new roofing franchise. We came in as franchisee number one, and we started our business at the beginning of March. So we're in the early days, and we serve homeowners across the entire suburban Philadelphia region.
Awesome. Well, how did you guys end up hiring global talent? Because a lot of what you do, from what I understand, is like on ground. So have you hired global talent before, or this is something recent and you only started with Sagan?
So I own the business with one of my good friends. His name is John. John and I, a small business that we operate on the side, and we leverage global talent to help with the administration of that business. Hired through one of the cookie cutter, I think, hiring firms that are out there. There's so many that you pay a flat fees, they source the talent for you, you make a decision on who to hire and kind of go on your way. So we went that route for our first hire, and it didn't seem like a very scalable solution as we thought about hiring more. The thought of paying $3 to $4K per head for every hire that we wanted to bring in seemed like it was pretty steep for a relatively small new business. And so yeah, we kind of looked for a little while to discover what else was out there until we found Sagan. Yeah, but so we had some familiarity with global talent. We knew that hiring globally could definitely help streamline the business. We were just looking for better ways to source those candidates.
Yeah. So what made you, so previous experience made you decide to become a Sagan Passport member, but could you tell a little bit more about your experience hiring with us? So what the hiring process was like and what set it apart from what you've had before hiring global talent?
Yeah, so the first time I went through hiring globally with the other firm that I mentioned previously, it was really just, I need a virtual assistant. Like, I need somebody to kind of crunch numbers into a database and send emails. So anybody would basically do, as long as they're responsible and show up on time and do it right. This roofing company, the demands of the different roles we want to hire for are slightly different. They're more complex. We needed to hire really specific roles across multiple different departments. And so as it relates to Sagan, the hiring process was honestly a little bit ridiculous in a good way from my perspective. I typed out 100,000 things on exactly what I wanted to work for. So the first role I hired for was an executive admin, and I feel like so many things that I wanted to check off, so many boxes, and I assumed that there was no way that we'd be able to check them all off. But let me see. And Sagan came back a couple of days later, said we're going to start our search. After asking me some qualifying questions, I think less than a week after that, the first candidate they sent me was Laura. She was literally the perfect candidate. She matched my description almost exactly, and then some. And we decided to hire Laura and bring her on as our executive admin. So she lives in Bogota, Colombia. She's been phenomenal for us since day one, and we think that she's really going to grow with the company. Candidate number two, we recently hired Gabe. He was onboarding with us at the beginning of last week, and now he's in the full swing of things, making cold calls. Again, ridiculous situation. We basically asked for someone who speaks perfect English and who would make 300 to 400 cold calls a day without complaining, and assumed it was essentially impossible to meet all of the criteria we were looking for. And the same thing happened the second time around. You guys went to work right away after asking me for a host of qualifying questions. And Gabe was the first candidate that you brought to the table, which to me was nuts. My jaw almost dropped the first time I heard him talk on that pre-recorded interview that you guys had sent me, because his English is perfect. It's like I'm talking to my dad or something from the States. And he's a shark. He loves making calls. He wants to help drive the business. He's on time. He's responsive. He's actually working a lot more hours right now than we expect, just because he's traveling so much. So we've been really, really pleasantly surprised. So overall, from beginning to end, like 100 out of 100, my experience with the Sagan home. Gabe was crazy. Like, I think because I had so many strict demands, especially on the English side, I assumed that the search was going to take a while. They said the expectations would take 3 weeks, maybe a little longer to really find the right guy. And Gabe came back in less than 2 weeks. It might have been 7 to 10 days. It was
phenomenal, really. That's so cool that he's already on the team and up to speed and running. And yeah, I wanted to ask you if there was like a specific success story or a positive outcome, but I think you've already talked about that and shared about the hires that you've already made. So what about the community aspect? Because I know that you're like on the leaderboard of our school community. So how has that been for you?
That's cool to hear. I didn't even know that. The community is awesome. It's one of the main things that attracted me to Sagan to begin with. Like what John and everybody at Sagan is creating is really special for people like me, new business owners without much experience running a day-to-day of the company, and looking for help in terms of thinking about how we scale. And I think that's outside of the two rockstar candidates that you guys have brought me. The community aspect is, you can argue, is the biggest value add, because it's really gotten me to think in ways that I wouldn't have been able to think about how we get all the processes documented on paper, connecting with other members in the community and listening to different webinars and recordings and talks, and others who have been really, really successful hiring globally that can help streamline your business. And what you realize, the deeper you get into it, it almost has nothing to do with global talent. And it has everything to do with how to run the most efficient organization possible. And so I think that's what I've taken away the most, is the only way to make global talent work is by being extraordinarily efficient. And the community at Sagan is helping teach me how to do so. So that's been great.
Wow, that's great to hear. Yeah, we're about to roll out some new things and, we're constantly adding something else and trying new formats. So it's great to hear your feedback that it has been super useful and insightful for you. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, what would you tell a business owner or a manager who was on the fence about hiring global talent? So what's your take on it?
That's a really good question. What I would tell them is, well, I think most important, as I've gone through even for such a short period of time, I think number one, you have to get really specific on what you want and who you want to hire for it. And then you have to ask your peers who have been through it whether or not that candidate might be best served hiring globally. Like, I don't think global talent solves for every employee at your company, but I think it solves for a number of them that you might not necessarily think about when you start out. So, for example, one of the great things about the Sagan community is you can ask a lot of questions. And so people are very transparent about when you shouldn't hire global talent and when you should. So I think if you get really specific about what you want, and you ask questions to your peers and lean on their advice. I mean, I think that's rule number one, is just get advice from people who are a heck of a lot smarter than you and have been through things that you haven't been through. And that's what Sagan helps provide. But once you get really, really granular on what you want and you're pretty confident that global talent can be a solve, then I think you just trust the people who you've already invested money into to bring the right people to your table. And the thesis that John's laid out from the beginning is really proving to be true, is that there's a wealth of intelligence and knowledge across the globe, and tapping into that can be extremely valuable.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, I think. And I love your point that it's not for every single role. And actually, you can learn about that, also what the best use cases are, I guess. And I think the last but not the least is, where do you see your business in the next 6 to 12 months as a Sagan Passport member? So how many more hires are you thinking of making with us?
Gosh, that's such a hard question to answer, because in a perfect world, I'd hire a lot. But as a new business, you have to be careful, and you want to make sure that you're hiring people at the right time. So, like, I'll use Gabe as an example. We use Gabe to help build out, well, he's just starting our cold outbound branch of the company. And my hunch is that Gabe crushes it, and he helps bring us a massive volume of leads. And if that's the case, then we'll ramp up that department. Right, I can see us hiring 2, 3, 4 more people within the next 3 or 4 months if things are going really well. And then the better that department does at their job, the more we need help on the sales side here locally. And so we'll have to hire more salespeople here, I'm sure. So I think time will tell. But I think it's reasonable to believe I'll hire at least a small handful of people to help with the company.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that's really exciting. And of course, fingers crossed. And we're always here to help you hire that global talent that will help you and facilitate you grow even more. So you know where to find.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think, like, what this has taught me too is now when I think about all the different departments that I want to build out and that you almost need to build out as your company scales to a certain point, I think the first question I'm starting to ask myself is, can this be done with global talent? Which is a complete framework change from where I was even a few months ago, because let's use social media as an example, right? We're a small company, we only have a certain amount of cash in the bank, and we have to be really careful with our hiring decisions. And so as a result, I do a lot of things myself. I wear a billion different hats. I think a lot of small business owners do. It would be really intimidating to think about building out some type of social media management department, or like short form video content department, hiring people in the US, just because that expense, it gets so massive so quickly. It doesn't even make sense. The first question I ask myself now as I think about all the different directions I want to the company is, can I actually get there at a reasonable amount of money, quick time frame, by leveraging global talent? So I think that's great. And I think it makes me really excited about where we can take this thing.